Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. With me today, I have Rick Alcantara, Ed Samuel, and Dawn Bell. The question I would like to ask, how are companies dropping the ball on diversity, equality, and inclusion, and how can they fix it? Dawn, big topic. Can you kick us off?
Sure. I guess maybe we start with hiring, because really the diversity and the richness of your pipeline will really drive, especially in your C-suite, the types of candidates that might be available to you when the time comes for promotion. And one of the things that I've noticed and that we've really advocated for where I'm currently working is to have a diverse slate of candidates. And I think one of the ways that companies might drop the ball on this is really not to be intentional about the recruiting process and not including a diverse slate of candidates. Our minds are very much geared towards shortcuts and heuristics. And so if you have, one diverse candidate on in a pool of candidates, our minds will put that person to the side as they do not belong, and they will have almost a zero chance of getting that position. So it's really important to have that diverse slate to start. You could even go one up, one better, and have a blinded slate. I know the blinded auditions and orchestras have been really instrumental in increasing diversity in orchestras, as an example. So I think really being very intentional about your hiring practices is a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Hiring is very important. Early in my career, I worked for an organization that kind of bragged about, its diversity in its ranks. But the problem was that the folks who were in the minority community were represented in the lowest 15% of the salary band in the organization. So that told me there was a big problem. Also, it was very white male heavy in the senior leadership. There was one woman in the senior leadership. So that created a problem. And what we're really seeing now is a major issue for a lot of big organizations and even small companies as to how genuine their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives are. Are they really backing them up with anything, or are they just saying, I support this, and they're really not putting any money behind it? They're not putting anything behind it. They're not changing their policies or their procedures. So it's just almost like greenwashing in the environmental community, where they're just saying it, hoping that they're going to get good coverage or good media, and really not backing it up with any actions.
I would add that because I have a recruiting background, I see this in maybe a little bit different lens. Those companies that have taken a step to build a succession plan and really think it through, and then they say, well, you know what? I have a big group of white men, in a department, and all 30 of them look all the same. And then what you have to do is say, well, you know what? Let's bring in a African American, and I always remember early in my recruiting days, I was hired by a very large telecommunication firm. Ed, we need you to find an outstanding tax professional, a leader with this specialty, and they have to be a Black African American. Now, and what I liked about that was that they put the money where their mouth was. They, they said, hey, in order to do this, maybe our internal people aren't skilled to go find somebody like this. Then you go and you hire an external recruiter or a headhunter to go find someone, and it's hard because you're not trying to find anybody, you're trying to find an outstanding talent, right? So part of the equity inclusion challenge is not just to fill seats with bodies, right? But to go find the talent, and you have to invest money to do it. So when companies make that kind of effort, that's making me feel a whole lot better than just talking about it.
And I really think it's important. Oh, sorry to cut you off.
Because just in the ideal world, of course, it's part of their culture. So it's not a matter of, well, we need to find a Hispanic American, or we need to find an African American. It's like you said, Ed, it's going to be the best candidate for that job. And, then it won't be an issue. And if in the ideal world, you wouldn't even need a diversity and equity, person to run a program for you. It doesn't need to be a program. It needs to be part of your culture and everything that you do. So part of your values and your mission. And then you don't have this kind of on the side kind of initiative.
And I think you're fully right there. Rick, you have to value diversity of opinion and diversity of experience, because that's what it's really all about, is that you want disparate viewpoints, in the meeting rooms, on the teams, in the boardroom, because that brings a richness and it brings a higher level of performance, which has been shown time and time again. When you have diverse teams, you will perform better than your peers who do not have diverse teams. So companies really have to value that first and foremost, and then create the cultures and create the operations behind making that a reality.
And is it diversity just in how people look? Is that the marker we use?
I think it tends to be, Robyn, but I'm with you. I think it's diversity of experiences that are really important. And certainly the way you show up in the world, the way you look will change how you experience the world. And I'm sure as people of color will let you know. But it is also diversity of backgrounds. You know, one of the things that I have found in previous roles was that, you know, we had an executive committee where people looked very different. We had a great gender diversity, you know, on the team, but they all had the same, you know, the majority of the people on that team had a very similar experience, right? They were in the sales, they went into marketing, you know, they went into general management, and so their thinking was actually not diverse at all, even though if you looked at the team, it looked like a quite diverse team.
Right. That leads to that group think where everybody just kind of says, yes, I agree. Absolutely. It goes straight forward. The other part of this too is it's not just, you know, the color of your skin. It could be your age as well. There's companies that just won't hire anybody over like 40 years old. It's just like, they're not going to do it. And again, they're losing a lot of that talent because they're just saying, okay, we only want fresh talent right out of college or something.
And I see the opposite too with, you know, ageism to younger people, especially in the biotech startup world, where, you know, maybe you want a few gray hairs and you feel like that experience, you know, brings some value, that there may be, you know, bias against young people starting new companies as well.
See, I'd like to add a kind of even a broader perspective on things. You know, prior to COVID kicking in, right, there was a movement in the United States, really across the board, in terms of this issue of equity, inclusion, and many companies, I want to say between 2016, 17, 18, they were hiring positions that they had never thought they would ever hire before with this kind of focus. Now, what's happened since COVID, this whole great resignation that's happening right now has made it extremely more difficult for a huge amount of companies. People are quitting, they're quitting their jobs, resigning without even a job in hand, in unprecedented levels. So we want to focus on this, but you have to understand the companies now are in a real challenge because people are leaving them in droves and they have trying just to fill the seat. So now we throw in, hey, let's have a succession plan when they're like dying to fill positions. It's a candidate-driven market. We're just in a really tough time right now. So as we talk about this topic, I would say, yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, we had that same challenge and they were trying to address it, but wow, is it hard now for some companies?
Yeah.
And I might add, you know, what we've seen is, you know, from statistics that are out lately is that COVID has actually put us back on the gender parity curve by about 30 years. And this is because, you know, many of the family responsibilities did fall to women, and more women were more likely to leave their jobs or stall progress in their jobs during COVID than were men. So that's definitely something to that we need to be cognizant of as we're hopefully coming out of COVID, and we can get to more hybrid working, which could actually be very family friendly, or more family friendly potentially than on-site working, and change the way we work in order to have more inclusion and more diversity.
There's still a lot of gender inequality in STEM professions and in technology professions. And I know a lot of companies are really trying to solve that, but I think they still have a long way to go.
And I know even here on Quick Hits, I have to talk to 4 to 1 women to men to get any kind of equal balance of women who are available and can actually do quick hits. So I'm sure if I'm having that problem, asking people to give me 20 minutes of their day once a month or something, I'm sure that organizations are having similar problems with their diversity planning.
Yeah. And the other thing that's coming up now, certainly in corporate communications, is diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, which is, you know, is everybody receiving equal justice under the law? You know, and it's not being doled out based on their religion or their race or their color or anything like that. And again, is your company supporting any of those initiatives and putting money behind it?
Yeah. I think it's a really big subject. I think it's super hard to cover in 10 minutes. And especially even just trying to put together this panel, I was like, who has the experience? How do I get a diverse panel? What does it look like? And do they have a different background? To your point, Don, having people who don't only look different, but who actually have a different trajectory in their career, I guess, is how you get diversity as well. So I think it's a super big subject. I appreciate all of you taking the time to talk to me about it. I don't know if we answered any questions. We may have created more than we answered, but thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking to each of you again really soon.
Thank you, Robyn.